Well, hello, and welcome to another episode of the Full Quota podcast. My name is Mpho and I've got Tim Lace here with me. We are South Africa's number one cricketing podcast. We talk all things South African cricket. We're live on X, on YouTube, as well as Facebook. And also, please follow us on those platforms on YouTube, most importantly, because obviously it lets you know when we go live. And then also, we've got an audio version on Apple Podcast and Spotify. We're recording this on the South African morning of the second test match with South Africa and the West Indies. So when you listen to this, the test match might be on, so you may either agree or disagree with us. But, we thought we'd put something out just to let you know. I do apologize. I was away on holiday, and now I'm back. I did watch Australian breakdancing, which was wild. And the fact that Australia thought they could bamboozle the world is even wilder. But anyway, Tim, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Yes. Apologies for the break, shall we say, in the show. Paul was away, and then I got a really bad sickness the last few days. But I'm back. We're both back to full fitness. We're both raring to go.
Yes, most definitely. So let's look at that first test. Obviously, we had the preview last week with MASH, and we knew that the pitches would be low and slow. We spoke about what Shukri wanted, and we had Tristan Stubbs at 3. The surprise, obviously, was Vian Mulder batting at 8. And it surprised everyone because obviously we went in with 7 batters, 7.5. And if you consider Vian half a batsman. And then obviously you went in with the 4 bowlers, Vian Mulder being included. Normally South Africa would have gone 7 batters and actually 4 out-and-out bowlers. Tim, what did you make of the team selection in that first test and all the ramblings about it? I was busily laughing on YouTube as Shukri picked a team and everyone was sitting there going, Vian Mulder, really? But yeah, it was interesting. And I thought he was one bowler or half a bowler short, not one bowler short, half a bowler short. Because from an out and out perspective, Vian is half and half, even though I think he's more of a bowler than a batter. But I didn't think he could do the job. And everyone's talking about 20 wickets this, 20 wickets that. But obviously it was rendered mute because of the weather. But what did you think?
Yeah, look, you can have both things can be true here, and I do think that they're true.
Mm-hmm.
I think playing 7 batsmen was the wrong decision. On a pitch that was going to be difficult to get 20 wickets, and that was known. It is traditionally difficult to get 20 wickets in the West Indies, unless you are really, really high quality. But at the same time, I don't think, because of the rain and because of just how slow and low that pitch was, I don't think if we had played 6 and 5, we would have won that test match. I just don't think we would have got across that line. I can't categorically say that would have been a fact, but I still think we went in with the wrong side. And it's going to be very interesting to see where they go with the second test match, but we'll touch about that at the end. So it didn't really make much sense to me playing the extra batter. I thought that Shukri was a forward progressing, attacking, willing to take risks. This was a team that wasn't willing to take risks. This was a team that was making sure they were not going to lose this test match and bank everything on second test match. That's what it seemed to me.
And I think from my side, I felt that he missed the trick. This was the game he needed to win. The second test, which starts in a couple of hours from when we're recording, when you listen to it already started, that pitch is going to be slower and lower, right? So unless if you play 2 spinners, you might find yourself in a situation where it brings the West Indies back into play with their 2 spinners, right? Moti and Jamal Warrican. And South Africa, we know traditionally when it comes to spin, you can have days where there's a spell that takes you out. And I thought if there was a game that you didn't want to lose, it'd be the second test. The first test was it still got something in for your pace barrage. And normally when you go into subcontinental conditions or flatter conditions, it's pace that wins the day. And if you looked at that bowling lineup, right? Lungi, yes, he's lost some pace, but he's still an experienced bowler, so I wouldn't have any qualms having him in there. Kagiso obviously needs to be there, but he's not express pace. You don't have Gerald because he's injured. Miguel is still new. The guy who had a great series in India, who needs to have been rewarded for that, Nandre Berger, is the one who sits out for the fact that you want a little bit more runs. And for me, that's where the thinking broke down, because we've always wanted seven batters. Seven batters tells you that you are worried about your batting. Having an all-rounder at 8 who bowls a little bit of swing but is not going to be that effective on that wicket doesn't make sense to me. Yes, Vians can swing the new ball, and he's done that for the Lions here, and some of the pitches here have been quite flat, so it could happen, but I just don't get why he didn't want to go in with Nandre Berger and say 7 batters, you have your job, and the other 4 bowlers will do their job. And the bowlers came through. Keshav came through with 4 wickets in each innings, and Gachis also had some incredible spells with some with the older ball and in the first innings, and obviously with the newer ball in the second. But it just baffled me, and I thought taking away a Vian Mulder, and it like Vian batted well in that game. I thought, depending on the condition, looking at the conditions, I was like, he actually did put up his hand a little bit and he applied himself. And you could see that he's turning a corner. It's a long corner, but he's turning it. But I felt that if he was going to play in the side, he would be the number 7. So you have to drop one of your batters. And I'm not sure what the thinking was. I thought he was too conservative, and we ended up in that situation. And I think, if there wasn't any rain, there would have been a result, and I think we would have been on the right side of that result. But I think we would have had the wrong assets to help Timber win the game. The great thing is that Keshav is phenomenal, and he took 4 wickets, and it was great. And if you look at, I think for me that was the thing. And then obviously you look at the batting, right? Everyone got a start. Everyone got some sort of a start. And obviously Aiden had his moments, but he was there for 34 balls in that first innings, right? But nobody was truly kicking on, right? Temba got an 86, Tony DeZosi a 78, even up to Vian and Calvarane a 39 and 41. Tim, does that not worry you that guys are getting themselves in, giving themselves time, and not being able to capitalize fully to take the game away? Because if they did that, we wouldn't be worried about taking 20 wickets, because someone would have taken the game by their horns and would have pushed the target to closer to 400. And then you're batting once, you're batting big. And that's what the West Indies didn't want, right? They didn't want South Africa to put down a 450 and then say, come at us. But yeah, what did you make of the batting? Because I looked at that and it was just, it was part of the reasons why I felt he was too conservative, but also I think he's sitting there going, this is a lottery. I'm going to throw all my batters at this problem, and one of them should kick on and get a century. But none of them did. They all got in, didn't capitalize, and we found ourselves in a situation where we ended up with a draw.
Yeah, look, 450 plus partnerships in that first innings. None of them went past 60. 450 plus, and none of them went past 60. I don't know why my light's going out.
But that's okay. We can still see you.
But we'll carry on. And that is an issue. I think there were quite a few soft dismissals that were got in, particularly if you're looking at Tony and Bellingham, particularly. Obviously, Bellingham only made 29, but he's very experienced without having a lot of Test cricket. Tony to make those runs, you have to make 100. You've got to go, right, okay, 3 figures. And
Mm.
that's that sort of shot in that sort of moment it just isn't needed. So it certainly made our life more difficult getting a result
Mm-hmm.
than easier. It certainly did that. It certainly did that. And that's certainly one that they have to work on. If you're going to play in the Caribbean, there are going to be large periods where you have to soak up not necessarily pressure, but it's quite difficult to score on pitches where the ball isn't coming on. And the South
Mm.
African batters, generally speaking, like the ball coming on. So it was, I
Mm.
think, from that perspective, it was quite challenging for them. And I think there was an element of frustration overall.
Yes, and you kind of get a sense that, once guys got over a certain number, be it 20, 30, or whatever it is, they thought, okay, no, we're in, we can trust the bounce and we can try and impose ourselves on the West Indies. And that's when the wicket started falling. And I think for me, that was something that was frustrating. But I looked at Timber's innings and I was like, okay, cool. I was quite impressed because I thought he played with a lot of patience in that first innings. He batted within himself. He moved the ball around. He played with what was given him. Yes, obviously going out at 86 is still a frustration, and it's something that Timbers had his entire career. The man's got like 9 scores in the 90s, and only 2 centuries. So
But
it is something.
it is something for him. But at least his, in this particular case, was good delivery. So
Yeah.
that's, that
No, no,
so
no.
that's,
Yes,
yeah,
and to a
yeah.
certain extent, compared to everyone else kind of got a point of frustration where it was like, oh, okay, let me try and hit a loose one, and then you're like, oh no. Whereas Tembo was playing within himself, and it's essentially what Test cricket was. We're never going to win this Test, even without the rain in day 3. It was always going to be a day 5 situation, and I felt our batters in that first innings were slightly impatient, especially once because they gave us the patience, so they showed us that they have the skills, and they do to get to get themselves in. And then obviously the adages are once you're in, you understand the pace of the pitch, and somehow you just couldn't understand the pitch was just not necessarily too paced, but it was still not giving our batters what they wanted to. So you were still playing within outside of yourself. You weren't playing a natural game. You were playing a B game or C game where you had to play what's in front of you, not necessarily be able to trust what you can. Whereas in the UK and Australia and South Africa, once you get 25 runs, you should be able to get to 100 because you can trust the pace and the bounce. There's not a lot of lateral movement after you've got in there, and you kind of understand the movement of the ball. Whereas here, there's not the carry is inconsistent and or low, and then you just always have to be vigilant as to how you're batting, and they did that. But then the frustration was once you got over that hurdle, everyone then was like, let's try and play freely. And then you're putting us on the back foot. And it was very stop start first innings there. But look, it made the fact that, like, I think in the second innings, Tim, they really did try to up the ante and they were very aggressive. And you got a glimpse of that against a tied West Indies side and a side that was trying to effectively elongate the game with their bowling, which is the worst part in Test cricket. If you're trying to stretch the game as a bowling side, it doesn't work. But if you looked at that second innings, Tim, you thought there's some things we can take from here. And to a certain extent, my thinking is, especially for the second Test, there should be a few players, 2 players, where Shukri allows them to be extra aggressive, and then the others need to try and bat around that and see if we can't necessarily negate a pitch that's going to be slower and lower than the one we had in the first Test.
Yeah, certainly. So there are definitely lessons will have been learned from that test match. But as you say, I think the way that they changed things at that second innings because they had to. They had to
Mm,
think on their toes. They had to think because of what was happening around them. They acclimatized to the situation, I think, absolutely superbly. Um, and I actually think that, although I'm always think the declaration could come a little bit earlier.
Mhm.
I don't have massive issues with it. It was a
Yeah.
decent declaration. Um, so we put ourselves in a decent position to get a result. And I think if we had bowled like we did in the first innings, we
Hmm.
might have got a different result. Um, but yeah.
Yeah,
I think
actually,
January.
let's move on to the
Yeah.
bowling, right? Obviously, we weren't happy with the selection of four bowlers, with the fourth bowler being Vian Mulder. I felt that Vian Mulder was, I think we both felt that Vian Mulder was just a little bit too extra on either side. And he diminished the power of what makes our bowling attack great. And ideally, if I'm a coach, or in a game like that I need to win, I lean on what's made us great. And the India series, Nandre Berger made us great. Why not play Nandre? Or why not give Miguel a chance? And I think for me, that's where the trick we missed. I think if we had one of those guys, even with the rain around, West Indies doesn't get to that uh, first inning score. We can make early inroads, which was the frustration because we didn't make any early inroads. Had a partnership of 70. It looked very easy. It was only when Keshav came in that things changed, and Keshav's very important. But here's the question, and something we realize, right? Obviously, we know we'll talk about Viet Mulder when we select the teams, but Lungi and Giti, everyone's looking at him. Everyone's saying he's off his pace. He's not the same Lungi as before. And this test match on a pitch like this just exposed, well, not exposed, but showed the world that he's not necessarily a red ball bowler. He's a top bowler. He's a good bowler, but on that wicket, it wasn't a wicket for him, and it wasn't going to give him much. And he, out of all our fast bowlers, possibly needs a little bit of pace and bounce to be a little bit more effective. And he was just ineffective, and that's the right word to use. And effectively, it rendered us going into a test match with two bowlers who were ineffective on those conditions, and that was a worry. Did you what did you see out of Lungi, and yeah, possibly even touch on Vian?
Now look, both of those fellows didn't give us enough. Um, People might say, well, particularly Vian, Vian only bowled so many overs, he bowled a lot. You could tell the few overs that he bowled
I
that he
wasn't
was
going to
going
take
to
a
be
wicket.
ineffective. He was going to be ineffective, and he wasn't going to get a wicket unless it was a run out or something. A wicket was not going to come. Um, in a similar with Lungi, I expected more from Lungi. Yes, you're right with everything that you suggest. He is better on a pitch that gives him something, not a lot, just something. And that pitch gave bowlers absolutely nothing.
No, and
Gave
we spoke about this in the preview with Mash. Mash said they're taking us to their slowest wickets on the islands. Why? Because they don't want to give South Africa an advantage, right? And then the thinking is, and they admitted that the pitches were slow. Surely, then, obviously with the squad, Lungi was always going to play. But if Lungi was a first change bowler, that changes everything. Because then you've got Kagiso on one end creating pressure. You've got another fast bowler who's also causing problems. They're going to seemingly look to attack Lungi, and that's when he becomes valuable in these conditions. If you're looking to Lungi to take wickets and to be a co-lead with Kagiso, change the game a bit, especially on this pitch. If it were playing at Newlands, and we know Newlands has been flat for the last couple of years, there's still a little bit of pace and bounce for it to move. If we're playing in Jamaica, lots of pace and bounce. That's different. Lungi then would thrive, and it's not as though he's a bad bowler, and it's not as though he's lost a lot of pace. We get that, and it's something that he needs to fix. But he's still the most skillful and crafty bowler in South Africa. And if you look at his IPL performances and his lesser lesser being viewed in the Indian Premier League as a bowler in a T20 where he actually thrives, it's largely because of those pitches, right? You need something to give you to get you going. Get those nicks, get that ball being caught behind square. And he just didn't have that. Lungi's not a wicket to wicket bowler. Vian is
No,
a wicket to wicket bowler, but Vian wasn't trying to bowl wicket to wicket. So
no,
Timber
no.
effectively had two bowlers.
Yeah, and that was a problem for the team. As good as Maharaj was, he was superhuman, but it did create problems. I think there is a wider discussion here, though, in that if you're picking a Proteas bowling lineup now, Gerald and Nandri are in that first 11 before Lungi.
Yes.
Right now, both are fit, both are playing. They are both playing instead of Lungi at the moment. So
Yes.
I think there is a discussion as to whether Lungi maybe decides my best formats and my best years are still to come from me potentially, but they are in red ball cricket. I mean white ball cricket rather. And I think that's potentially what might happen and should happen.
Look,
to get the longevity of his career, I think, because he is still a fantastic bowler.
he's still in his 20s. He's like 29.
28.
Yes, but I disagree, Tim. I don't think he needs to like throw in the towel and be like, Test cricket's not for me. I think the injuries that he's sustained over the past couple of years have rendered him to decrease his pace, largely because he doesn't want to get injured. And effectively it's hurt his standing in the test team. My suggestion is don't pick him for the end of year test teams. Send him back to the Titans, rehab, and his goal is to pick up the pace. We need him consistently at least above 140. He cannot be bowling 130 k's an hour. He cannot even consider entering in that realm. And in the next 4 or 5 months, even 6 to 7 months before the World Test Championship, we've got some tests on the other side. Actually, we don't. If we get to a World Test Championship final, it'll be great. But up until the next test series after Pakistan. So in this year, take a break, take a hiatus from red ball cricket. But the idea is for you to work on your body so that you trust that you can bowl 140 k's an hour plus, right? It's not a retire from test cricket. It's a let's take a break, just chill, right? We've been traveling around the world. You've been playing all these T20s. You can still do that, but your focus, if you really do want to play test cricket, and we need him. I don't think we can go in with a Gerald and an Andre and a Kagiso into a series and be like, yeah, we're fine. We need depth, and what the problem we have is we don't have that depth, and it's being shown now, right? And so I don't want to like throw Lungi out. And this is something similar to Luto Zapamla. You've lost your pace. Try to figure out a way to get it back. I understand injuries. I understand maybe you're doing stuff to kind of subconsciously keep yourself effective, and you still are effective, right? But in order for us to rely on you at a test level, you need to work on your body. Similar to what Anrich Nokia is doing, right? He's taking a year off, effectively, to say, I don't want to play test cricket for South Africa because I'm not there. Something like that needs to happen to Lungi.
Yeah.
Lungi.
It's funny you mentioned all these bowlers. Duan is doing exactly the same thing. I'm not saying Duan should come back. I'm not saying that at all. But he's doing that exactly the same thing back. He's talked about his injuries, and he's now working with a coach. He knows where things are wrong, like his pace. He's working with a coach to try and find that extra yard that he's lost, to try and get that back. I'm not saying it's going to work, but that's what he's trying to do. Something I think, as you say, that's something that Lungi needs to think about.
Yeah, because my issue, Tim, is Lungi.
He's played a lot of cricket.
Yeah, and Lungi brings us something different, right? He's not just the stock standard like the other guys, because he's got the skill in his armory from limited overs cricket, and I want that in my first change bowler. I needed that on this wicket, but you can't do that with a hard red ball. You can do that with a older ball, but even then, I still need you to do it at 140. So when you do a change in pace from 140 to 120, it's an actual gap, not
It's yeah,
130 to
it's yeah,
120.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
So he's a thinking bowler, and I want him in the team. The issue I have is you've lost pace. So take a break. Ask to take a break. You know, you can be available, but you know, and then CSA's announced batting leads and bowling leads, and we've got fast bowling coaches. I think he needs to work on that. Come back to the Titans. You can use this season for the Titans, this 4-day season, to kind of get yourself back. Try and work on that body. Trust that body, because to me, and I'm speaking, I'm putting words in his mouth. It feels as though he's bowling with his injuries in mind, and he's been doing that a lot. And he understands that in limited overs cricket, you can get away with it. And he's been successful with it because limited overs cricket's more about change of pace and skill and everything else that he's got, all these different balls that he has. But it's test match cricket, especially on pitches that do not help you, require you to come in and bowl as fast as you can, which is also a question as to why are we resting Marco Jansen? I don't understand why he isn't there, especially if you are selecting a squad and you're looking at it and you thought, look, I love Dave Patterson. I don't think he can bowl on these wickets. They knew they were coming here. I don't think he can bowl on these wickets. And it's I don't know. Like I don't understand.
Look, yeah, I don't wanna hate on Dane, but it did seem like a strange selection. Let's put it that way. It did seem like a strange
Yes.
selection at
Unless
the
if they
time.
thought that Swing was gonna win in this first test match, or even in the second one, that the ball might get lateral movement, but there's no bounce.
No, and he needs bounce. The only thing I think of is that his record in England is phenomenal, and English wickets, West Indian wickets, they're not that similar in terms of bounce. There's
and
more
the Duke's ball.
movement. There's more movement in England, but there's less. So that kind of a thing. What was the other thing? There was something you said that I wanted to touch on. Oh yes, the Marco Jansen thing. Well, the problem with the Marco Jansen thing is that we haven't heard anything official. We start coming up with all sorts of theories, and we might be completely wrong. And I might be completely wrong. But I can't help but think it must be a mental thing. I can't help but think of what happened. He needs a mental break from the
then why was
cricket.
he so why must the so here's a question for you, Tim. Why must the national team be the one that gives him the break, whereas he was out there in America gallivanting, trying to win games for the Washington Freedom, playing with those Aussies? And he looked fine because he was taking wickets there. So why are we giving him mental breaks? Because then they obviously mentioned that other bowlers are going to get rests. I think based on where we are and the fast bowling stocks we have in South Africa, nobody should be given a break. It's unfortunate, but the way things are going, even when Bangladesh come to play us in a couple of months, I don't think anybody should be given a break from a fast bowling perspective. I think everyone needs to be available, even for the Pakistan series in December. Our fast bowling stocks are, the moment you get to Dane Patterson as number 5, and I'm excluding Vian Mulder from this because I think Vian and Dane are similar, and I think Dane's the better bowler. We are running very thin, very, very thin. And it showed in this test match. And I think it's one of the reasons why we didn't come out with a win, because we couldn't make inroads with the new ball.
It certainly is an issue. But you're right. our schedule, particularly in this format, our schedule, you can't have guys going, okay, I'm taking this one off. It just can't be.
You can't.
Yeah.
So let's look over to the one thing I want to talk about before we go. Tristan Stubbs at 3. That was a big question mark. Got himself in the first innings, got himself out. Yeah, got a 20, then got out. And then in the second innings, when we needed to go, he went. But that's his natural game. Are you comfortable as a South African supporter to have a number 3 that is a master blaster, that whose natural game is to be very dominant?
No, I'm not. And I got a lot of after what I said in the preview. Look at Stubbsy. He made runs. Obviously, he's brilliant at 3. I still stand by what I said.
Mm-hmm.
I have huge issues with him at 3.
Okay.
I have huge issues of what he's going to be like when he plays India, Australia, England. I don't think it's his best position. It might become, and I said at the time, it might become his best position. He might become a brilliant number 3. He might play himself into that position. Is it his best position right now? Is it the position we're going to get the best out of somebody of his quality? No. I firmly believe that. Even if he makes 100 today, we bat first and he makes 100, I still stand by that fact. I remain unconvinced that he is the best option at number 3. He still plays far too much in that corridor of uncertainty. Look, the game is changing. More and more T20 focused players are playing that kind of brand when they play T20 cricket with a slight, a very slight change. So that, and Test cricket is becoming more attacking because of England's approach. Everybody's playing more attacking cricket. The South African team under Shukri is playing a more attacking brand. That's undisputed, despite the team selection for the first test. But I remain unconvinced. If he proves me wrong, I will happily eat humble pie.
So
but I'm
who do you
not
think should be
convinced.
batting at 3?
I think it should be the captain's role. I know Tempo doesn't want to bat there, and I understand it. I absolutely understand it.
Then if Tempo goes to 3, who bats at 4? Stubbs or Bedingham?
So then Bedingham would go at 4. Bedingham at 4.
I have an idea.
There's not a lot of
I have an
difference
idea.
between Bedingham between
So
4 and 5.
what baffled me was Tristan was being put into 3. Meanwhile, Rickleton, who bats in the top order for the Lions, should have been the person batting at 3. It just bothered me. I was like, but Rickleton's more the guy who bats at the top for the Lions. So it's not foreign to him compared to someone like a Tristan Stubbs. So I just sat there going, is this a case of overthinking? And I think that first test to me, and this is probably the last thing I'm going to say about the first test, it's overthinking. We overthought everything. Someone was like, no, let's take 7 batters. Maybe take an 8th, try emulate England because Vian can bat and bowl, and so we can steal our way in there because 7's too high for Vian. But no, let's blow them away with our batting. And then we forgot about the bowling, and we thought Lungi was still good enough, and he is still good enough, right? And just overthinking. Like, respect Test cricket, and you'll be fine. Even that top 7, just bat round at 3. And say he's not a wicketkeeper, he's an opening batsman across all 3 formats. So put him at 3, and give him that chance, right? And he's a left-handed batter, so it makes our lives a little bit interesting. And then Stubbsy can come in at 6. And he's a youngster. He's grown into Test cricket, so put him there at 6. Let him grow, like Quinton de Kock. Let him back there. It's not going
That's
to hurt
actually,
him.
yeah, I would concede that's actually the better option. If you're playing Rickleton, which you are playing him, play at the first test, play him where you think he's going to best thrive, and all the points you make are make sense. Give him a proper run, see what happens.
Yeah. Okay, Tim. We've got about a couple of minutes to go before the guy in thingy. Are you in the guy in the test match going 7-4? And who are you? What are your changes?
No. So I'm always drastic. I'm always controversial. So I'm making 2 changes. Just so people know, I think South Africa will make one of the changes, not both. I don't think they'll make both. So I'm going Dane Pete for Lungi and Berger in for Rickleton. I want 20 wickets. I want to guarantee 20 wickets.
So you're keeping Vian in there?
I'm keeping Vian purely on the way that he batted in the first innings. That was very, very impressive. I think without that score, we don't make 357. You know, we make 310, something like that, which makes our score even less. So that's where I'm going. I of those 2, I think Pete's going to come in. I'm not sure who for, but I think Pete will come in.
Okay. So I'm bringing those 2 in, but for 2 different people. I think Vian comes out for me. So I'm keeping 7-4. So it's Lungi out for Nandre and Vian out for Dane Pete. So 2 spinners, 2 quicks, 7-4 should be enough. And yeah, Ryan Rickleton bats 3 for me. That's the thing. It's going to be slower. It's going to be lower. Aidan Markham's going to bowl a lot of overs, and I'm okay with that. And yeah, I like the 7-4 split. I'm not scared. But yeah, it's just something for me. But I recognize the 6-5. Win the toss, bat first, Tim.
Win the toss, bat first. Make 450 this time. In the test match. When we make 450 in 450, we will win the test match, weather permitting, of course.
Yeah. Okay, weather permitting. Okay, good luck to the Proteas and everything else. Shout out to SA Emerging. Lesego Senokwane, we see you. 270, 89 in the ODIs. Well done. That's what we want to see. And all the rest. But we'll talk about that on Monday. We'll give you a review and also SA Emerging news on there. But for myself and Tim, remember, please do follow us on X, as well as subscribe to the YouTube channel, also on Facebook, and also please follow us on Apple Podcast and Spotify. From ourselves here at the Full Quarter Podcast, good luck to the Proteas, and yeah, we'll see you again. Lesale kakahiso. Find the video.